God is not an old man sitting on a cloud, not a voice echoing from the high heavens, nor an image constructed by humanity to be worshipped from afar. Those are cultural memories, symbols passed down through religion and generations, but they are not the living truth of the divine essence. The truth, if one is still enough to perceive it, is this: God is a frequency. A frequency does not need to be described by a face or a name. It does not require you to believe or to fear in order to exist. A frequency only requires you to tune in. That is the wonder, and also the greatest confusion. For we have been taught to look outward for God as though it were something distant, a presence to be found, to be pleaded with, to be persuaded into bestowing blessings upon our lives. But what if every prayer you have ever spoken did not need to be heard, only aligned? What if God is nowhere, because God is in everything? Imagine a radio. It does not need to create the waves, it only needs to tune to the right frequency. The music is always there, whether you hear it or not. And the radio does not have to prove itself worthy to be broadcast. It only needs to align. The frequency does not choose the listener. It only responds to resonance. In the same way, God does not choose whom to love, does not reject anyone for lack of faith, does not love less because you did not pray in the correct manner. The divine presence is always broadcasting, steady, impartial, unconditional, waiting for you to harmonize. Have you ever felt such peace that no words could describe it? Ever had a moment where gratitude overflowed for no particular reason? Ever fallen into a strange depth of stillness as though everything was perfectly in place? That is not emotion, that is signal. That is the moment you accidentally tuned to the right frequency. You did not realize you had met God, but you were emitting a matching wavelength, and God was present in you, through you, as you. In science, every form of life operates on waves. The brain emits electrical waves. The heart generates a magnetic field. Every cell radiates its own vibration. The human body is a complex system of energy navigation, not only receiving but also transmitting. The universe around you is not empty. It is an invisible ocean of energy full of fields of information, pulses, frequencies. Everything you live in is an interaction of vibrations. And in that world, God is not standing outside watching. God is the energy field encompassing every living vibration. The question is not whether God exists. The question is whether you are tuned correctly. It is not whether you believe enough. It is whether you are emitting the matching frequency. Belief only has power when it carries the vibration of unity. A person may utter hundreds of prayers each day, but if they still live in fear, still radiate the signal of lack, still operate within the consciousness of separation, they are transmitting a mismatched frequency. And the universe does not respond with pity. It responds with resonance. The frequency of God is the frequency of unconditional love, of creation, of abundance, of unwavering peace. It is not something distant to reach. It is simply your most original state before it was fragmented, before it was conditioned by fear, by society, by language, by memory. That frequency does not need to be built. It only needs the interference covering it to be removed. Just as sunlight does not need to be created, it only requires the clouds to move away. When you stop begging and begin to feel, when you cease striving and begin to touch, when you pause and become present, you will see God does not arrive, for he never left. No intermediary is needed, no elaborate ritual, no moral qualification to connect. You have always been an inseparable part of the divine field, only the matter of whether you are in sync or not. The important question is no longer, does God hear me? But what frequency am I broadcasting? When you emit fear, you are not judged, but you align with a fearful reality. When you emit gratitude, you are not pretending to be positive, you are tuning. And gratitude only connects with corresponding realities. The frequency does not distinguish who is good or bad. It only responds precisely to the signal you consciously or unconsciously send out each second. And here lies the greatest freedom and also the greatest responsibility. You cannot blame God, destiny, others, or the past, for it is you who are transmitting. And your life, like an honest, energetic mirror, only reflects what you are broadcasting. Not sooner, not later, not lacking, not excessive. God does not require blind belief, only alignment. When you sit in silence in a state of pure gratitude, not for anything specific, but simply because you are present, because you breathe, because you can feel, You have touched that frequency. Not dazzling, not noisy. No miracle required. For you are already the miracle radiating the signal of the most sacred, the frequency of life. Hold that wave. Sustain it. And you will see it is not that God appears, but that illusions disappear. It is not that he was silent, but that you ceased the interference. God is a frequency, and you already possess the most vivid transmitter-receiver ever created your body, your emotions, and your consciousness. The only question that remains is, are you tuned to the right wave? If you can connect to Wi-Fi without begging, if you can unlock a door simply by carrying the right frequency within a magnetic card, if a radio can broadcast just by tuning to the correct station, then why do you think you need to beg God? To plead to prove yourself worthy, to pay a price to bargain? No electronic device has to demonstrate its reverence to be connected. It only needs the right frequency, and so do you. God is not persuaded by tears, not swayed by fear, not influenced by rituals, by the number of prayers, or by the extent of your sacrifice. For he does not bestow according to human standards. He responds through alignment. When you vibrate with the frequency of love, life welcomes you as a child returning home. When you emit the wave of gratitude, you need not ask for anything more, for you have already opened yourself to receive everything. The issue does not lie in what you say, but in what you are transmitting. Many people pray every day, yet they broadcast from fear, from lack, and from unworthiness. They plead while vibrating in anxiety. They think they are communicating with God, but in truth they are declaring to the energy field, I do not have. I am not enough. I am not loved. And like an honest mirror, the universe does not betray that signal. Have you ever begged for something for a long time, and it never happened? Perhaps you thought you were not good enough, not faithful enough, not virtuous enough. But what was truly missing was not effort. It was alignment. What signal were you transmitting during all that time? Were you living as though it had not arrived, or as though it was already a natural part of you? Here is the crucial point that few ever state plainly. You cannot emit the frequency of lack and expect to receive abundance. You cannot vibrate in fear and expect life to deliver peace. You cannot hold the image of weakness and expect reality to respond with strength. The universe does not listen to words, it listens to the consistency between the emotions, the thoughts, and the inner images you live with each day. God is not a force that reacts to tears, but an intelligent field that always responds to frequency. Imagine yourself as a door vibrating at a certain rhythm. If you do not adjust that vibration, then even if the light is knocking outside, it cannot enter. Not because the light rejects you, but because you have not aligned. So what will you choose? To continue begging in fear or aligning in faith? To keep pleading to be heard, or to live as though you have already been answered? The question is no longer whether you believe God exists. It is whether you dare to live as though he is already present within you. And right now I want to ask you one thing. A simple question, but it could be the turning point of everything. Are you ready to align, not just with words, but with the vibration of truly living it? If the answer is yes, if your heart in this very moment knows that it is time to shift, state, let me know. Comment right under this video, I am ready, or simply the number 1. Not only so that I, the one telling this story, can feel your precious presence, but also so that you can declare to the universe, I have chosen to open a new chapter with him. Because from the moment you choose a new vibration, you are no longer the one waiting for a miracle. You have become the miracle. Not because you demanded it, but because you tuned to the right frequency to receive. Not because you are more deserving than others, but because you no longer cut off the flow with distorted signals. Alignment does not come from striving, but from letting go. Letting go of resistance, of doubt, of the old images of a distant God and of an unworthy self. Alignment is ceasing to search outside and beginning to live from within. It is understanding that he is not ahead of you for you to chase after, but already within you, waiting for you to resonate. Look at every second you live in a day. Are you living as someone who has received, or as someone still waiting? Are you acting as one who is loved, or as one afraid of being abandoned? With what frequency are you conversing with life anxiety? Lack, clinging, or gratitude? Abundance, certainty, because every moment you are sending out a declaration, not through words, but through your entire presence. And life, as an impartial, intelligent field, only responds to that exact rhythm. You do not need to become someone special to align with God. You only need to release the interference that made you forget who you are. You do not need to understand every metaphysical principle, only to choose the vibration of love, truth, and gratitude in this very moment. Alignment is the deepest language of the soul, not loud, not ostentatious, just a subtle resonance between what you desire and what you emit. And in that resonance there is no distance between you and him. You can begin again right now with only one thing instead of continuing to beg. Start aligning. Because when you change frequency, everything else will automatically change with it. No strings to pull, no chasing, no demanding, only that you dare to live as though the divine is already real. And then it will be real. A human being is not merely a physical body existing in time and space. You are a living device constantly broadcasting and constantly receiving, even when you have no idea you are doing it. No cables required, no buttons to press, no switches to turn on or off. The system is always running. With every thought, every emotion, every vibration you experience, each second you are sending a signal into the energy field that surrounds all of life. And at the same time, you are also receiving corresponding signals. There is no downtime, no pause, not a single moment when you are not online. Your thoughts do not end inside your head. They radiate outward as vibrational pulses. The emotions you carry are not just inner phenomena. They generate a measurable magnetic field around the heart. Every decision you make, every word you speak, every state you sustain, is information continuously broadcast into the quantum field. And this field, like an intelligent ocean, misses nothing. It responds, it organizes, it arranges all events, circumstances, and people according to the signal you have sent. This is no longer just a spiritual hypothesis. It is the science of frequency and resonance. Your body is a multidimensional transmitter, from the electrical activity of the brain, the magnetic field of the heart, to the vibration of every cell. But you are also an extraordinarily sensitive receiver. You sense energy from others. You are influenced by the emotions of the environment. You react to invisible messages moving through space. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt uncomfortable even before anyone spoke? Have you ever met someone and without hearing a word already knew they were carrying negative energy? That feeling did not come from vague intuition. It was the signal you just received from another broadcasting device in operation. And the reverse is true. Others are also receiving the waves you emit, even when you say nothing at all. Your silence has a frequency. Your presence transmits a message. The reality you are living is not determined by fleeting acts of will, but by repeated signals. Not what you think in a passing moment, but what you sustain in your underlying state. If you continuously broadcast the frequency of worry, the universe will respond with circumstances that keep you worrying. If you transmit abundance, opportunities aligned with that frequency will gradually appear, not as a miracle arriving from afar, but because you tuned to the right wave and the system responded. You do not need to force reality. You do not need to control others. You only need to broadcast the right signal, and reality will reorganize itself. Just as when you tune a radio correctly, the song already present begins to play. You do not create the song. You only allow it to manifest through resonance. Life is the same. You do not need to push everything to make it happen. You only need to emit the right version of yourself, and the rest follows. Yet most people do not know they are broadcasting devices. They think they are just daydreaming, feeling moody, speaking unconsciously. They do not realize that every single thing they emit is leaving an imprint in the shared energy field. They do not see that every vibration is a letter sent, and there is always a reply, whether sooner or later. And then they ask, why does my life keep repeating the same patterns? Why do I keep encountering negative people? Why do I always fall into lack, doubt, stagnation? The answer is not in fate. It lies in the signal you are continuously transmitting, the signal you may not be aware of but are still sending out each day. Recognizing this is the first step to freedom, because once you know you are a broadcasting device, you also know you can change frequency. No one is locked into one signal forever. Frequency can shift the moment you shift your inner state. Simply by changing the material of your thoughts, the atmosphere of your emotions, the way you see the world, you are changing the signal. And the quantum field will respond with corresponding data. But to broadcast clearly, you need an inner clarity. No confusion, no contradiction, no half-belief, half-doubt. Inner disorder causes your signal to become distorted, and the surrounding field cannot respond precisely because it does not know what to answer. If you want love but still fear being hurt, if you long for new opportunities but cling to the past, if you want healing but still hold on to the role of victim, you are transmitting a broken signal. And what comes to you will also be fragmented, random, unstable. The strongest broadcasting device is the one with an inner life that is consistent, thinking, feeling, speaking, and acting as one. They need not say much. Their very presence is a wave, and that wave is strong enough to restructure the space around them. Have you ever been near someone and just by being in their presence you felt more at peace? They were not trying to do anything. They were simply emitting the right frequency, the wave of inner calm, and your body, your energy field received it. This means if you want to change reality, you do not need to manipulate external circumstances. You need to adjust the device within, not fixing the world, but fixing the signal you are sending. And that begins with the awareness that you are always broadcasting. You cannot not broadcast, just as you cannot not breathe. But unlike breath, the waves you emit create the picture of the life you are living. When you understand that you are a living broadcasting device, you will stop blaming life people, the past, the system. You will begin to observe yourself. What am I transmitting? And that question will become your spiritual compass, guiding you to recalibrate the entire way you live, think, and feel. You will begin to live as a creator, not by force, but by frequency. And then what you seek will no longer be answers from outside, but the clear stillness within, where every signal radiates from a steady, pure, loving center. And from there, the waves you emit will not only transform your life, they will gradually transform the world around you, not through noise, but through the right frequency. The quantum field does not know what you are saying. It does not hear your voice. It does not understand human language. It does not react to lengthy pleas or flowery affirmations. It only receives and responds to the overall signal you are broadcasting. That signal does not come from the words you speak, but from the sum of everything. You are the beliefs you hold, the emotions you live in, the images you carry in your mind, and the frequency your body is transmitting. You may say that you trust, but if your underlying emotion is doubt, if your body is still tense, if your mind is still preparing for failure, then the entire signal being emitted is one of distrust. And the quantum field, neutral yet intelligent, will not respond to surface declarations, but to the deeper layer, the true signal. It is not words that determine results. It is the degree of coherence between thought, emotion, and vibration. If a person repeats positive affirmations each morning but immediately after worries, complains, compares, and doubts, the quantum field does not record the affirmation. It records the entire vibrational wave that person transmits throughout the day. Like a piece of music, no one judges individual notes but the whole harmony. If you play one beautiful note in the middle of many wrong ones, the music is still off. The important thing to understand is this: you do not communicate with the universe through language. You communicate through frequency, and frequency is built from many layers, some conscious, others unnoticed. Thought is only the surface, but repeated emotions, foundational beliefs, nervous system states, and the images you replay in your mind, all of these form the overall signal you emit. And it is that signal that is the language the quantum field understands. There is no pretending at the level of frequency. You cannot think one thing, feel another, say a third, and expect the universe to pick the part you like best to respond to. It does not fragment. It does not choose. It only receives and responds to the entire vibrational essence being broadcast. A person may say, "I believe I will succeed." But if they go to bed with unease, wake with silent anxiety, live with memories of failure, and react to life defensively, then the overall signal they emit is, "I do not believe I will succeed." And that is what the quantum field responds to, not because it punishes, but because it operates on energetic resonance. It has no emotions, but it has absolute precision. You cannot send out the vibration of a victim and expect the results of a creator. You cannot hold the image of failure in your mind and expect to receive victory. You cannot cling to past pain and at the same time hope for a liberated future. You only receive what your overall signal matches with. And that signal, whether you realize it or not, is functioning like an energetic command sent into the central coordination of all reality. Therefore, if you want to change the result, you do not begin with words. You begin with alignment. Alignment between thought, emotion, belief, action, bodily state, and inner imagery. When all those layers stack into one clear, complete, non-contradictory wave, the quantum field responds quickly, and often in ways that make you think it is a miracle. But in truth, it is the natural reaction of a sophisticated system to a clear and decisive signal. That is why affirmations only work when accompanied by inner transformation. If you say, "I am loved," but deep down still fear abandonment, the words carry no vibrational weight. But if you say them from a state of already experiencing emotional wholeness, already feeling love from within yourself, already having released resistance, then every word you speak carries a wave. And that wave reaches where it needs to. The quantum field does not measure time, it measures frequency. It does not care how long you have been affirming something, it only responds to what you are being right now. That is why every true change begins in the present. You do not wait for something to happen before believing. You must believe first for it to have grounds to appear. You do not wait for evidence before being grateful. You must be grateful first for evidence to arrive. This is the reversed nature of the law of resonance. It does not wait for confirmation before operating. It waits for you to emit the right wave, and then it responds. You do not need to understand every mechanism, but you must take responsibility for the overall signal you are sending. And that responsibility does not come from guilt, but from awareness that you cannot say one thing, live another, and then expect a third. Honesty with yourself is the starting point. No decoration, no forced positivity, no smothering fear beneath layers of positive thinking. But the courage to see clearly what you are broadcasting. And from that clarity you gain the power to choose again, to recalibrate, to change. Not through force, but through deeper alignment. You cannot deceive the quantum field. But you do not need to, because it does not judge you, it does not categorize you, it does not punish you for bad signals, it simply responds. And that simplicity, if you grasp it deeply, is the very key to transforming everything. From the moment you live as though what you desire is already real, not pretending but truly living that way, the entire signal you emit changes, and then the quantum field has no reason to delay. Because it does not operate by worthiness. It operates by resonance. The overall signal you send out is your true prayer. Every day, every hour, every minute you are praying, not with words, with waves. And that prayer is always answered with precision down to each vibration. The words you speak never disappear. Every sound carries a vibration. Every vibration enters the surrounding energy field and leaves an imprint. Not just an echo in the air, but an energetic directive you have sent into the system that is shaping your life. In other words, words are vibrational commands you transmit to reality. And reality, like a sophisticated mirror, always responds not according to what you wish, but according to the wave you just emitted. No one teaches us this. People are taught to be careful when signing contracts, when choosing careers, when dealing with others. But rarely are we taught to be careful with the words we utter each day. And so words become unconscious tools for planting commands we do not even realize we are giving. I'm so tired, I must be unlucky, I never catch a break, I'm not good at that. No one truly loves me, phrases that sound harmless but are in fact powerful energetic directives. You are commanding your body, your timeline, your reality through your very voice. The greatest danger does not lie in the thoughts you keep hidden. It lies in the words you repeat aloud, accompanied by emotion. Words plus emotion equals amplified signal. Each time you say something with belief, with complaint, with humor rooted in assumed truth, you are sending a command into the quantum field. And it does not distinguish whether you are just joking or serious. It only responds to the vibration attached to the words. Words are not merely a medium of communication, they are a medium of creation. You are not simply describing reality with words, you are recreating reality with them. Because the words you choose to use do not only reflect what you think, they reinforce what you become. The more a statement is repeated, the more power it holds to shape. It engraves itself into the subconscious as an instruction, and the subconscious, acting as the hidden operating system, will carry it out. No checking, no arguing, only execution. If you say, "I am clumsy," you will begin to act that way. You will unconsciously avoid situations requiring finesse. You will automatically forget your own adaptability, because you have reprogrammed yourself through speech. And your operating system, your consciousness, always obeys the clearest, most repeated, most emotionally charged command. No one programs you better than you, but no one sabotages you more than you, if you are unaware of the words you use. Observe successful people, those who live in peace, those who always arrive in the right place at the right time. Their language is different. They do not joke about failure. They do not use words that disrespect themselves. They do not repeat common negative phrases, because they understand every word is a seed of energy. And the environment you live in is the field sown by the millions of words you have spoken. But there is no need to fear the past, because you are also the one who can sow anew, starting from this moment. And the miracle of words is that they can reverse the flow if you change the frequency attached. A positive declaration has power, not only if it is true, but if it is spoken from a state of trust, without strain, without defense. When you say, "I am healing more each day," it is not denial of pain, but a command to the body to remember its ability to restore. When you say, "I am guided," it is not superficial spirituality, but a signal of resonance with the invisible wisdom always present. Words can be leaks of energy or pathways for light to flow. Every sentence you speak is a choice, either unconsciously repeating old thought structures or consciously creating new commands. And you do not need to be an orator. You only need to begin with honesty. I choose to use words to build, not to break. When you begin to choose your words, something strange happens. You do not only change the way you communicate, you begin to change the way you think. Because the brain is reshaped by language. And when the brain changes, emotions change. When emotions change, the entire signal you emit changes. And from there, words are no longer reflex but instruments of refinement. You no longer speak out of habit. You speak to create. One who knows the power of words no longer uses language carelessly. They do not speak ill of others because they know they are broadcasting harm. They do not belittle themselves because they know they are inserting false commands into the system. They do not joke in dark ways because they know the subconscious has no sense of humor. It only repeats. Each time you open your mouth, you can either continue installing fear or release potential, not by hiding the truth, but by speaking the truth on a higher frequency. I am not good at this yet, but I am learning. I used to worry, but now I am learning to trust. I once felt invisible, but I am remembering my light. Such statements do not deny reality, they direct it back on course. Words are waves, and waves have the power to destroy or to create. Are you speaking as a victim or as a designer? Are you repeating the programming of the crowd or redrawing the vibrational map of your life? Transformation does not begin with a long lecture. It begins with one sentence, one right sentence, one sentence with frequency, one sentence you choose to speak and live by. And that is where every miracle begins. Not out there, but from your very mouth, in the very first sentence you speak after knowing words are vibrational commands, and you are the one broadcasting them right now. Imagination is the architect, words are the blueprint, but without emotion no structure is ever built. Emotion is the fuel of creation. It is the living energy pumped into the mental image, the current that makes ideas become tangible, the fuel that makes the frequency you emit strong enough to leave an imprint on the quantum field. Thinking alone is not enough. Speaking alone is not enough. Only when emotion merges with thought, crystallizes in words and action, do you truly send out a formative command powerful enough to shake reality. That is why two people can visualize the same thing, affirm the same thing, but only one achieves it. Because one repeats in indifference while the other speaks from a surge of faith, of gratitude, of living emotion vibrating in every cell. And the universe does not measure words, it measures waves. And waves only grow in amplitude when the emotion is deep enough, real enough, coherent enough with what you are reaching for. There is a dangerous misunderstanding that emotion is secondary, that spirituality must rise above feeling. But the truth is the opposite. Emotion is not something to avoid, nor an enemy to control. It is a tool, a signal, an essential part of the mechanism that shapes reality. You cannot broadcast a clear frequency if you do not dare to feel what you desire, as though it is already here. Not fake forced emotion, but a genuine immersion into the feeling state that resonates with what you want to see manifest. Do you want to be loved? Then feel love from within, even if no one has yet appeared outside. Do you want prosperity? Let every cell breathe gratitude and sufficiency, even if your bank account is still modest. not to pretend, but to deliberately choose vibration, because you do not wait to have before you feel first, so that having may follow. This is how the flow of creation operates, not from outside in, but from inside out. You do not need someone else to love you before you can feel lovable. You do not need the world to hand you an opportunity before you can feel worthy. The emotions within you, if refined and elevated, become signals broadcast more powerfully than any outward action. And it is this not frantic doing that redraws the map of your life. Neuroscience shows strong emotions enhance memory, increase neural connections, and reprogram the autonomic nervous system. Which means when you attach emotion to a positive image, you are not merely daydreaming. You are restructuring your brain, activating new neural pathways, and commanding your body to operate according to a new design. Remember the times you were truly angry. One thought could make your whole body heat up, your heart pound, your hands shake. Conversely, when you truly love someone, you need no physical touch, yet your entire physiology changes. If a single emotion can shift biology in an instant, why underestimate its role in shaping destiny? The problem is that people are led by emotion without knowing they can choose emotion. They react, they drift. They let the environment decide whether they will feel joy or sorrow, love or hate, faith or fear, and so they lose sovereignty over their energy. But you are not a victim of emotion. You are the chooser of waves. You can learn to observe emotion, to work with it, even to generate it like an artist, mixing colors for a canvas. Choose to create emotions that match what you want. Ask yourself, if I were already living in what I desire, how would I feel? Then step into that state. Not waiting, not delaying, not doubting. Just a few minutes each day when you breathe with gratitude, when you feel peace from the still point in your heart, when you let faith spread through your chest, you are fueling the engine of creation. One right emotion can outweigh hundreds of misaligned thoughts. One complete feeling can bring you back to the right frequency, even if you do not understand all the theory. That is why you should not force yourself to say things you do not believe. Do not repeat affirmations in emptiness. Stop. Breathe, and choose a real emotion. Feel first, so that creation follows. That is the natural order of all miracles. When you live in the emotion of what you want, you are no longer the seeker but the broadcaster. When you rejoice as though the miracle has already happened, the miracle has no reason to delay. When you vibrate as though you are already whole, you attract other complete pieces into your life. Not by calculation, but by resonance. This world does not lack energy. But too few dare to use emotion to guide the wave. They only think, only pray, only act without letting their hearts truly live in what they long for. And it is this lack of fuel that keeps dreams from taking flight. Beautiful images, fine words, clear plans without emotion remain blocks of ice that cannot lift. But when you ignite fire from within, when you let your heart burn with love, with faith, with a pure stirring toward what is beautiful and coming, you will see everything around you begins to move. Doors open, people arrive on time, opportunities appear. Life draws nearer as though it has been waiting for you all along, just for you to emit a wave strong enough. And then you no longer doubt, because you have seen by experience itself, emotion is the fuel of creation, and your heart is the greatest broadcasting station in your entire body. When you let it operate, not just as a biological organ, but as an energy center, you are not just living, you are creating, every second. You do not need to wait for reality to change before you allow yourself to feel joy, to feel loved, to feel abundant. You do not need to wait for someone to arrive before you feel worthy. The correct order is not, I have, therefore I feel. It is, I feel, therefore I have. Because in the world of energy, emotion is the unlocking command. It is the first signal sent out to summon matter into form, to gather circumstances, to open doors. If you wait until you feel right, you will wait a long time. But if you choose to feel right from within, what you are waiting for will begin moving toward you. Creating emotion first does not mean pretending. It does not mean denying circumstances. It does not mean ignoring sadness. It is a profound act of sovereignty. I choose the direction of my vibration first in order to generate a reality that resonates with it. I do not wait for the world to hand me a reason to be joyful. I choose to feel joy as though that reason is already here. And by that choice, I am recalibrating the entire signal I am transmitting into the quantum field. You are the broadcaster, and waves do not wait for the image to appear before vibrating. Waves vibrate first and then the image forms. Just as a radio transmitter does not wait to be connected before sending. It broadcasts continuously, and whoever is on the same frequency receives. Your emotions work the same way. You feel first and everything aligned begins to find you. Not through logic, but through resonance. The paradox is this: most people only allow themselves to feel good once the result has arrived. They place joy, gratitude, and peace into a hypothetical future. When I have money, I will relax. When I find love, I will feel enough. When everything is stable, I will finally be at peace. But that very waiting delays the flow, because you are emitting the vibration of lack, of temporariness, of instability. And that is what the quantum field registers. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what are you? You are the vibration you live in every moment. You are the foundational emotion you carry. You are the default frequency you wake up with each morning and fall asleep with each night. Reality does not reflect surface wishes, but the overall signal you have sustained long enough, deep enough, consistently enough. Therefore, if you want something to appear, do not ask, how will it come? Ask, if it had already come, how would I feel? And then begin to live in that emotion. No acting required, just honesty. If you truly believed your desire had happened, you would not worry the way you do now. If you truly believed you were loved, you would not need to control everything. If you truly believed you were supported, you would not panic at challenges. So live as though you already believe, starting now. Make emotion the starting point. Each morning, instead of dwelling on what is missing, recall the feeling you want to live in. Visualize not to escape reality, but to anchor yourself into a new wave. Be grateful not for anything specific, but for the fact that you are alive, that you breathe, that you still have the ability to choose your vibration. Because once you broadcast correctly, you need not worry about how the miracle will come. It will arrive by the shortest path, one your mind does not need to understand. The outer world will begin to shift when your inner frequency changes. People will start responding differently. Opportunities will begin appearing. Coincidences will become so precise they cannot be random. And you will realize you do not need to manipulate reality. You only need to adjust emotion, not control everything, but choose the right wave and live fully in it. This does not mean you will never feel sadness. It does not mean you must always appear positive. It means you will learn to return to center. After each sway, you remember, emotion does not come from the world, but from a choice of perception. You can shift states from low to high, from doubt to trust, from resistance to allowance, in just a few breaths. And each time you do, you are rewriting the pathway of reality. You do not need to wait for good news to be happy. Be happy as though the good news is already on its way. You do not need to wait for a solution to be calm. Be calm as though the solution is already here. You do not need to wait for someone to arrive before you feel lovable. Love yourself as though you are the most cherished soul on earth. And when you live that way, you enter a frequency the universe cannot ignore, because you have matched the signal that summons it. Emotion is not something that comes after results. Emotion is the door through which results enter. When you grasp this, you will stop demanding that reality change. You will return to changing within. You will become a creator from the unseen level, no longer the one who waits, but the one who broadcasts deliberately. And from that moment, you will no longer feel small. For you will know you are the transmitter, the frequency maker, the one who directs emotion first so that reality follows after. And that is how miracles begin, not from outside, but from the inner state you have chosen, you have felt, and you have lived as though every good thing has already happened. And it is that very act that makes it happen. It is not fleeting emotions that determine your life. It is background emotion. That vague feeling that is always present whether you are busy, joyful, or appearing calm. Background emotion is the underlying vibrational state, like a current continuously running through mind and body, unbroken, silent, yet governing all the energy you emit, and therefore deciding what will repeat in your life. Background emotion is not the feelings you clearly recognize. It is not the outburst of anger, not the obvious sadness, not the brief joy from a compliment or from receiving something. It is what remains when you are not trying to feel anything. It is the state you fall back into when there is no stimulation. Like the idle screen of a device. From the outside, it shows nothing but the operating system is still running. A person whose background emotion is doubt will always struggle to believe in the good. Someone carrying unconscious fear will always attract experiences that keep them on guard. A person accustomed to the feeling "I am not worthy" will unconsciously sabotage major opportunities, even while deeply wanting success. And they do not do this because they are foolish. They are simply living in accordance with the signal their emotional operating system is broadcasting. Background emotion is like an invisible magnetic field surrounding you. You do not see it, but it influences everything you attract, every decision you make, and every way you react to the world. A gentle, trusting, grateful field will make you respond differently to challenges. Faced with the same event, a person with a negative background emotion will feel threatened, while a person with a positive background emotion will see it as a necessary test. And that reaction is the point at which two destinies diverge. You cannot fake background emotion, because it is not what you perform, it is what you live in. Even your words, your actions, or your smiling face, if not aligned with your background emotion, will be perceived by the world immediately. For true vibration always precedes outward image, and the world does not respond to how you perform, it responds to how you truly vibrate. Background emotion does not change by reading more theory. It only changes when you are courageous enough to look within, to touch the layers of feeling you have suppressed, denied, or forgotten. Only when you honestly ask, "What background emotion am I really carrying?" can you begin to reshape it. That is when you become the one who actively reprograms your invisible operating system. And that reprogramming does not happen overnight. It is a process of repetition, of observation, of choosing again each time the old emotion returns. Every time you notice yourself shrinking from fear, tensing from insecurity, reacting instead of responding, and you pause, breathe, shift, you are rewriting a line of code in that system. Gradually, little by little, you begin to create a new background emotion. A positive background emotion does not mean you are always cheerful. It only means you no longer live in a default state of defense. You are more relaxed. You do not overreact. You carry an inner steadiness that others can feel in your presence, as though you are a transmitter of a healing frequency. And from that place, new things begin to appear: healthy relationships, aligned opportunities, turning points that require no force. If you want to change reality, do not start only with behavior. Go back and check your background emotion. Ask yourself each day, what am I really feeling when no one is looking? That is the feeling you bring to work, into conversations, into decisions you thought were rational. And if you change that, you will see outer circumstances shift without much effort. It is like changing the fragrance you wear without saying a word. People begin to experience you differently. A background emotion of gratitude will soften your voice. A background emotion of trust will open your gaze. A background emotion of sufficiency will slow your haste. And these small changes redirect the entire flow of life. Do not underestimate background emotion just because it is quiet. Its very silence makes it powerful, for it seeps into everything from the words you choose to how you rise from a chair, to how you reply to a message, to how you walk into a room. And the world perceives you through these details, not through business cards or resumes. Background emotion is the vibrational business card you present every day, whether you introduce yourself or not. Choose the background emotion you want to live with. Nurture it like a garden. By listening to yourself each morning, by writing down things you are grateful for even when life is not yet as you desire, by breathing more slowly when you want to react, by speaking to yourself as you would to a wounded child. We are safe. We are loved. We do not need to tense up anymore. Background emotion is not a byproduct of circumstances. It is the raw material from which circumstances are formed. Let it become your ally instead of your hidden saboteur. Reprogram it with awareness, with patience, and with the love you have never fully given yourself. And then you will see, without doing anything grand, you are already changing the world, beginning with the invisible operating system within you. No one can live in vibrational coherence if their mind and emotions are in conflict. You may think positive thoughts, you may repeat hundreds of affirmations each day, but if your inner feelings say the opposite, then it is the feeling that gets transmitted. The universe does not listen to words. It responds to the overall frequency. And that frequency does not come from surface thoughts, but from the deep agreement between mind and heart. If you think one way but feel another, you are broadcasting a distorted signal, and the results you receive will mirror that distortion. Imagine yourself saying, "I believe I will succeed," but underneath you feel doubt, feel not good enough, feel others are better than you. In the energy field, those words are nearly meaningless. The true signal being emitted is the vibration of insecurity, comparison, and worry. And that is why you may say the right things, but attract the opposite. Because it is not thought alone that creates reality, but the alignment between thought and feeling. You cannot hide your true frequency. Outwardly you may look radiant, your words may be polished, your actions skillful, but if inside you feel fear, disappointment, or unease, that is the signal the world perceives. And it is also the signal the quantum field amplifies. This is not meant to make you anxious or try to control every emotion, but to help you understand you cannot just think differently without feeling differently. On the other hand, you may not need to say anything at all. But if you live in trust, feel at peace, feel grateful and relaxed, then that state itself is sending the clearest message. And the wonder is, such states often need no words. They are a language without sound, yet powerful enough to affect the entire environment. A person whose thoughts and feelings are consistent carries a natural magnetism without effort. Many people assume, as long as I think positively, I will attract positive things. But the truth is, if you think positively only to cover negative emotions, you are not emitting positivity, you are emitting contradiction. And that contradiction itself is a misaligned signal. You say you want love, but you feel resentful and doubtful. You say you want success, but you feel powerless and envious. You say you believe in good, but you live in defensiveness. All these out-of-phase patterns weaken your vibration, no matter how much effort your mind exerts. The key is not to force positive thinking, but to heal negative emotion. Not to cover it up, but to reconcile. Not to suppress, but to touch it gently and honestly. When you can face fear, sadness, wounds, without running away, then you truly gain the power to change frequency. For change does not come from speaking differently, but from feeling differently and feeling authentically. To reach vibrational coherence, you need two things: awareness and consistency. Awareness to recognize what you are feeling, what you are broadcasting, where you are misaligned. And consistency to bring thought, word, and emotion into the same direction. When you think I am worthy, you must feel it. When you say I trust, you must vibrate as though that trust is engraved in every cell. When you pray I am loved, you must live as though you are truly being loved. Every inner division creates outer delay. Any mask you wear, if not born from true vibration, cannot last. And you cannot deceive the universe. Remember, you cannot think one way, feel another, and expect a clear result. Just as music cannot sound harmonious if its notes are out of tune. Therefore, each time you say something, pause and ask, do I truly feel this? If not, be honest. Speak what matches your current state or lift your vibration by adjusting your feeling. Do not repeat affirmations you cannot feel. Choose another phrase closer to your present state but still moving forward. For example, instead of saying, I am very successful while feeling like a failure, say, I am learning to live in alignment with my potential, and I allow it to gradually take form. Building coherence does not need to be complicated. Begin with small acts, journaling your feelings, practicing gratitude each morning, giving yourself moments of silence to listen inward. Step by step, you will develop the ability to adjust feelings to match thoughts, and thoughts to match feelings. That is how you construct a clear, strong, magnetic vibration. When your mind and emotions speak the same language, you become clear. And when you are clear, the flow of the universe is no longer blocked. What you think, what you say, and what you feel combine into one unified command sent into space, and reality cannot help but answer. That is when you cease to be the one who hopes and become the one who resonates. And then you no longer fear you have not done enough or done it right or been good enough. Because you have understood, you cannot think one way and feel another. And you have chosen to live a single stream, authentic, clear and whole. It is not thought alone that creates power. It is not emotion alone that creates power. Only when both unite do you truly become a living channel of power. Within every person lies an immense reservoir of untapped force, not because of lacking ability, but because the inner current of energy is divided. One side thinks of what is good, the other still feels doubt. One side dreams of soaring, the other clings to feelings of unworthiness. And it is this split that weakens true strength. The mind is the sail, emotion is the wind. If the sail is set in the right direction but there is no wind, the boat will not move. If the wind blows strong but the sail is misaligned, the boat drifts off course. Only when sail and wind work in harmony does the vessel glide toward its destination. Likewise, only when thought and feeling move in the same direction do you open the current of power waiting to be released within. Power here is not the ability to control others, but the capacity to influence reality through your presence. It is the person who does not need to speak loudly yet others listen. It is the one who enters a room and brings steady silence with them. It is the one who does not strive to force events, yet what is needed finds its way to them. This is the kind of power that cannot be faked. It can only radiate when you are whole in vibration. Emotion is the blood flowing through every thought. If you think you are strong but feel afraid that strength cannot live, if you think you are loved but feel isolated, the message of love carries no wave to spread. Every thought, no matter how true, if not infused with the life force of aligned emotion, remains dry theory. It cannot sink into consciousness or reality. To step into a state of true power, you cannot work with the intellect alone. You must listen to emotion. For emotion is where you are actually living. The vibration sent out is not from where you think you should be living, but from where you truly are in each breath, each reaction, each silence. When mind and emotion are unified, you do not only think rightly, you feel it as part of your essence. No gap remains between intention and action. No buffer between desire and manifestation. You become whole in every choice, every word, every step, and thus you become clear. In the world of energy, clarity is the prerequisite for power to be activated. You may have wondered why some people speak little but wield great influence. It is because they are not scattered. They think, they feel, and they live in one stream. They do not need to persuade. Their presence is proof. When you reach that state, power is no longer something you must seek. It is something that naturally rises from an undivided inner life. To reach such unity, the first step is honesty with yourself. Do not deny emotions just to chase positive thoughts you are not ready for. Touch what is real then. Choose to gradually lift the vibration. The strongest thought is the one fully felt. The most powerful affirmation is the one spoken from a matching emotion. It is not about quantity of words, but about authenticity and accuracy. Do not mistake false positivity for true power. Some smile while trembling inside. Some declare great things, but the energy they emit is fear. Some work endlessly, but their actions arise from anxiety rather than faith. Anything born of inner division carries a distorted wave, and with that power is reduced, interrupted, or counteractive. You will know when you are unified, everything becomes simple. You need not overthink. You need not deliberate too long. You need not try hard to be right. Things flow. The body relaxes. The voice becomes clear. The gaze no longer avoids. And there is a deep inner quiet, as though you are moving with the current rather than struggling against it. Practice this daily. When you form a positive thought, pause and ask, do I truly feel this? If not, do not force it. Return to breathing, write out the fear, listen to the doubt. Then choose a small step to bring thought and feeling closer. It might be adjusting the affirmation. It might be 5 minutes of meditation. It might be holding yourself in silence. Small actions, if born of honesty and the desire for alignment, change the energy structure at its root. Power does not lie in how much you know, say, or do. It lies in whether you live fully within your vibrational stream. And that stream is strong only when it is undivided. A clear mind, deep emotion, aligned action. When all three converge, you step into a frequency no external force can interfere with. And then you will realize you do not need to go searching for strength. You only need to gather back what was divided. You only need to unify the inner life. When your mind and your feelings speak the same language, that is when you no longer strive to change the world. For in that moment, you yourself are the embodiment of change, and power is the inevitable companion. Results do not appear because you beg long enough. Results appear when your frequency is steady enough. In the world of energy, what determines every manifestation is not the number of prayers, but the quality of certainty within you. A person may say a single word, but if it is emitted from a state of deep trust, the entire universe will move to respond. Meanwhile, another may repeat hundreds of words, but if inside they still carry doubt, that vibration cannot create a true flow. Certainty does not come from theory. It is not knowledge, nor does it come from what you have read or learned. It arises from a deep agreement within yourself that what you are reaching for is real, available, worthy, and you do not need to beg for it to happen. In this state, you are no longer the one who pleads, you are the air. No longer the one standing outside knocking, you have stepped into the house. Pleading often comes from a hidden belief I do not yet have. I am not yet worthy. I must be approved before I can receive. Certainty, on the other hand, comes from a silent, profound, knowing I have already been given, and I am aligning with it. One who is begging vibrates with worry. One who is certain vibrates with gratitude even before seeing anything with the physical eye. And it is precisely this difference in vibration that creates two different futures. The one who pleads often creates delay, because their vibration is transmitting the signal I do not yet have, and I am not sure I will. But the one who is certain attracts quickly because they are transmitting the signal, I already have it in the deeper realm, and I am opening the door for it to enter the visible realm. You do not need to try to appear certain. True certainty does not come from the outer shell. It does not need display. It does not need to strain to look positive. It is a stillness, a form of knowing without explanation, a kind of faith without agitation, without rushing, without waiting for a miracle, but knowing that goodness is always available and what belongs to you will arrive in its right moment. Recall the times when you truly knew something would happen, not hoped, not prayed, but knew in a quiet, deep, steady way. You did not need to repeat it. You did not need to tell anyone. You simply acted as though it was already part of the stream of life. And indeed it arrived because you were living from the place where it was already true before your eyes saw it. Conversely, there are things you have greatly desired, but they could not come close, because you were still vibrating as the outsider, as the lacking one, as the one waiting for permission. And it is precisely that state that kept the door closed. You were not rejected, you were simply not aligned. You were not blocked, you were simply not steady. To step into certainty, you must change the way you pray. Do not beg, declare. Do not plead, affirm. Speak to yourself in a different tone. I am upheld. I am guided. I am provided for. And speak these as though they have already happened. Not to persuade, but to match frequency. To gradually become the one who lives in the vibration of sufficiency and certainty. You can begin with small things. When facing a decision, instead of thinking, I hope it goes well, say, everything is being arranged for my growth and learning. When entering a new place, instead of thinking, I wonder if it will be okay, say, I carry my light with me and I am received. Words like these, when spoken from a trusting heart, will immediately adjust the energy field around you. Certainty does not mean you control everything. It only means you no longer fear uncertainty. You no longer accept yourself as a victim. You know that some things do not need your understanding, they only need your alignment. And when you live in that frequency, everything begins to rearrange. The people you need to meet the opportunities that must come. The doors you once thought were closed will open not by effort but by resonance. True power does not come from physical strength or superior intellect. It comes from certainty in consciousness. A person whose mind is not yet sharp, but whose vibration is steady, still attracts what they need. A person whose words are not yet fluent, but who lives in trusting vibration, still gets invited into the right places, because power does not depend on effort. It depends on the alignment and stability of the frequency you are transmitting. If you find yourself still in a state of pleading, do not blame yourself. Simply see it as a starting point, and begin to shift gradually toward declaration. Each time you are about to say, please help me, change it to, I am learning to trust you more. Each time you are about to repeat a request, change it into gratitude. Thank you that I am already covered even when I cannot yet see it clearly. With these small acts you are shifting from begging to alignment, from lack to sufficiency, from fear to power. And when certainty becomes your foundation, you no longer need to force yourself to believe anything, because every cell in you is vibrating with that faith. Not noisy, not showy, but profoundly powerful. And that is precisely when what you seek will seek you, because you are no longer pleading. You are living as though it already belongs to you. And life never refuses a vibration that is steady enough. Not every declaration creates results. There are words that sound powerful yet are hollow inside. There are affirmations repeated thousands of times yet carrying no life. The reason does not lie in the phrasing, it lies in the vibrational source from which they are spoken. A declaration made from a state of deep knowing has the power to shake space itself. A declaration made from a state of lack, anxiety, or expectation is merely a repetition of form, and the universe does not respond to words but to the actual frequency you are transmitting. You may say, "I am loved," but if you feel abandoned, that declaration cannot reach the energy of love. You may say, "I am wealthy," but if you are vibrating with feelings of scarcity, envy, or confusion, then that statement is only a thin shell disconnected from the stream of creation. A declaration from lack does not change reality. It only mirrors resistance to the present, whereas a declaration from knowing is an affirmation of what you have already merged with, even if the physical eye has not yet seen it. When you declare something from a state of knowing, you do not need to prove it. You do not need to repeat it endlessly to reassure yourself. You do not need to ask again whether it is true, because you know, and from that, knowing words become current. A clear vibrational command sent into space beginning to reshape reality around you. All creation in the universe begins with such certainty, not from craving but from union. Picture yourself as a broadcasting station. If you transmit the signal I already have, then you and the frequency of what you desire are aligned. If you transmit the signal I need I don't yet have, then you are broadcasting a distorted frequency. And this is why many people speak beautifully yet live in delay. They are not emitting affirmation, they are emitting reminders of lack. Knowing is not a fleeting feeling. It does not depend on inspiration or motivation. It is a deeper layer where you have transformed old beliefs, touched the unshakable essence, and stopped seeking outward. This knowing is often very quiet. It does not try to appear strong, yet from it every word you speak carries weight, because it does not come from the lips but from the depths of consciousness. To declare from knowing, you must first live with it inwardly, not waiting for results to believe, but believing so, results can appear. Not waiting for others to confirm your worth, but from the knowing of who you are, living as though you need no proof. And precisely when you stop proving, you begin attracting. A simple but profound practice is this before speaking. Any affirmation, pause, breathe, and ask, where am I speaking from? From knowing or from fear? From sufficiency or from a sense of lack? From gratitude or from unmet longing? By answering honestly, you will know what to do next. Elevate your vibration, reconnect with inner truth, then speak the declaration. For example, if you feel lonely, do not rush to say, "I am overflowing with love," just to avoid that feeling. Instead, acknowledge, "I am learning to open my heart, I allow love to heal me, I am returning to the loving essence within me." Such words, if spoken with honesty and sensitivity, have far greater impact than an empty phrase that does not match your current vibration. And from such small steps, you gradually lift yourself to the frequency of knowing. Knowing does not require evidence. It is the evidence. One who knows they are on the right path does not need validation. One who knows they are loved does not need affirmation from outside. One who knows they are part of a greater plan does not panic at disruption. And from that state, every word, even the simplest, carries the capacity to take form in the material world. Declarations from knowing are how you step into the role of creator, not as a victim of circumstance, not as someone begging for permission to live better, but as a soul who has remembered its power, living as though everything needed is already flowing because you are already merged with its frequency. If you have ever wondered why affirmations sometimes do not work, return to this point. Perhaps you were speaking from lack. Perhaps you were trying to push fear away rather than truly changing vibration. And if so, stop, return, quiet the mind and reconnect with the deeper layer of knowing, the place where you need nothing to feel enough, where you do not need to see before you believe, where you simply are, and that is enough to release a declaration of power. It is not words that change reality, it is the vibration behind them. When you declare from knowing, even with a single sentence, the entire space begins to move in ways you cannot predict. Because when you send out a signal that is coherent, steady, and clear, reality cannot help but respond. Not because you spoke much, but because you spoke from the right place, the place of power, of awareness, and of complete alignment between you and what you are reaching for. There are prayers that never end, that require no spoken words, no formal language, and no special ritual. They are the way you are living. They are the constant vibrational state you transmit in every breath, every glance, every reaction, every choice. If you think that only when you kneel, close your eyes and say, "Lord," are you praying you have missed one of the greatest truths your entire life? Is a prayer whether you are aware of it or not. You are praying through the very frequency you emit. and the universe is responding not to what you say, but to the energy in which you live. A person may say they trust, but if they live in constant worry, their true prayer is, "I am not safe." A person may recite every positive affirmation, but if they continually doubt themselves, their true prayer is, "I am not worthy." And that living frequency, not the words, is what is being amplified and answered. At the deepest level, there is no separation between the spiritual and the ordinary, no boundary between the time of prayer and the time of everyday living. Every thought you nurture, every feeling you allow to stay, every action you repeat, all of it creates the background frequency. And that frequency is your unceasing prayer. You cannot not pray. The only question is, what are you praying for? If you live in gratitude, you are sending the prayer, "I am already abundant." If you live in forgiveness, you are sending the prayer, "I release burdens and choose freedom." If you live in light and empathy, you are telling the universe, "I am ready to be a channel of love." And if you maintain that frequency long enough and steady enough, you will see miracles occur, not through begging, not through pleading, but because reality is only a mirror of your living frequency. Picture a broadcasting station. It does not need to shout. It only needs to be stable and clear. What you call results in life are really the echoes of the signals you have been transmitting. If you dislike what is happening, it is not because you have not prayed enough. It is because you are transmitting a distorted frequency. And the way to adjust is not to speak more, but to live differently, to live with a new energy, to live as though what you desire is already true, to live as one already connected to the source. Living frequency cannot be faked, because it does not come from the surface. It comes from where you truly believe or doubt, from where you are settled or wavering. You cannot deceive the universe with words or outer actions. But you also do not need to try to impress. You only need to be honest. Look at the background frequency you are transmitting, then choose to change it at the root, not from fear but from awareness. One way to begin living as unceasing prayer is to ask a simple question. If I absolutely knew that what I desire is already on its way, how would I live right now? That answer is the living frequency you need to shift into. If it is trust, you will be lighter. If it is gratitude, you will no longer complain. If it is worthiness, you will walk with your head held high. And if you sustain that state, you are praying without a single word. Some think prayer is the act of faith, but living as though what you believe has already come true, that is true faith. And when life becomes the flow of a consistent vibration, you no longer need to try to attract anything. You only need to maintain the frequency. The rest the universe will arrange. Prayer is not a maneuver to change God's will. Prayer is the way you change your frequency to match what He has already been willing to give. You do not need to ask for light. The light is always there. You only need to open the curtain, and that curtain is the living frequency that covers your perception. When you raise the frequency, you are not persuading God, you are simply aligning with Him. So let each step be a vibrational declaration. Let each breath be a living affirmation. Let every choice, however small, reflect a knowing you no longer live as a beggar, you are living as one who has already been given. And when your living frequency is steady, prayer is no longer an event. It becomes the way you exist in the world. You do not need ornate words. You do not need advanced techniques. You do not need to prove yourself righteous enough to be heard. You only need to live with the frequency you wish to multiply. You only need to walk in clarity without worry. You only need to do what is right from the right place without force, without calculation. And if you hold that for 1 day, then 2, then 7, then 21, you will see everything begin to move in ways you never dared to believe. Not because you spoke better, but because you lived truer. Living frequency is prayer without words. It is silent yet continuous, invisible yet shaping the entire material life. When you enter that state, you no longer need to pray in the old sense, for you have become the prayer. And every second you live in that presence is a second the universe is saying yes. You may say you are praying for goodness, reaching for healing, affirming abundance. But if the deeper subconscious within you still holds opposing beliefs, what is being sent out is not your words, but the silent signals from the place you cannot see. And it is those signals, wordless, unintended, yet persistent, that are the true prayers being heard. The subconscious is where every concept, emotion, and belief formed since childhood is stored. It is where every I am is etched, often unnoticed. I am someone who is always abandoned. I am someone who is not good enough. I am someone who must strive and struggle to be loved. These commands do not sit on the lips, but they transmit powerful signals 24 hours a day. They are wordless prayers, but they are always answered by the universe because they are broadcast from the foundation. You can change your thinking, change your speech, change your actions, but if you do not change the root vibration of the subconscious, your life will always feel like an offbeat melody. The more you try to change outwardly, the more resistance builds inwardly, because you are transmitting two signals at once, one from the conscious mind and one from the subconscious. And the universe always chooses the stronger, more consistent, deeper signal. Always. True prayer is not the manipulation of the conscious layer. It is the adjustment of the underlying vibration where you are no longer performing, no longer packaging fine words and noble thoughts, but beginning to be honest with what is truly alive within you. Prayer is the cleansing of the deep. It is bringing light into your own darkness. It is daring to face the hidden prayers you never knew you were sending each day. Fear, resentment, inferiority, the sense of being forgotten. A person who never prays aloud but lives with a vibration that is pure and sincere can create far greater change than one who constantly recites prayers while carrying inner conflict. Because God does not listen to your lips. He listens to the frequency you emit from within, and that depth is the subconscious. To transform this strongest prayer, you cannot merely think positively. You must listen to the hidden vibrations. Ask yourself, what am I believing about myself that I have never spoken? What do I most fear but always avoid? What am I trying to prove in life, and to whom? The answers will lead you to the fragments of memory, the invisible programs shaping every decision. You do not need to erase them all in one day, but you do need to become aware of them, because the moment you see them, you begin to have the power to choose again. And from there, your deepest prayer begins to change, not by effort, but by presence. When you bring the light of awareness into the subconscious, you no longer act automatically. You begin to live consciously. You choose new words not because they sound nice, but because they resonate with a new vibration you are learning to embody. You do not just speak differently, you become someone different. A simple affirmation, if sown into the subconscious long enough, becomes a new program. But it cannot merely be repeated. It must be felt as truth. That is why you must pause, be silent, and go within. Only there do words begin to blend into your very being. And from there, the strongest prayer, the prayer of the subconscious, changes direction. If you have ever wondered, why do I pray so much yet results do not change? The answer may lie here. Because the words you spoke were not deep enough to overwrite the words you had already been sending. You are not wrong. You are not weak in faith. You are simply operating from two opposing layers. And the task is not to erase the old layer, but to make the new one stronger. Begin each morning with a simple affirmation, but do not rush. Let it enter you like a breath. I am loved. Speak it, then feel it. Feel it, then repeat it. Until it is no longer a sentence but a background vibration. At that point it has sunk into the subconscious, and you no longer need to repeat it often because you are living in that frequency. You are praying through your very existence. The subconscious is sacred ground, the place where every miracle begins. You do not need to understand it fully. You only need to know that you have the right to reseed it. Every moment you choose love instead of fear, gratitude instead of complaint, blessing instead of judgment, you are recalibrating the depth. You are rewriting the silent yet strongest prayer of your life. And the wonder is this: once that vibration changes, you no longer need to chase anything. You do not need to force results. You do not need to connect energetically with anyone outside. For when you change within the reality outside, change is on its own. The strongest prayer is not on your lips. It lies in the silent beliefs, the background vibrations, the states you return to each night before sleep. And when you choose to reseed those frequencies, you are resetting the map of your soul. You do not need more. You only need truer. And truest is when you no longer say it at all, but simply live it. In silence, in stillness, in the subconscious, where prayer never needs to be heard because it has always been answered. You may forget, but vibration does not. You may deny, but the energy field around you still holds everything you have ever believed, ever felt, ever experienced. Every thought repeated, every prolonged emotion, every fear suppressed. All of it is recorded not only in your body, but in the living field of energy you emit every single moment. This is not a mystical concept. It is a subtle reality that modern science is gradually approaching, that we are not merely flesh and thought, but a vibrational ecosystem, a living field of energy surrounding and permeating us. And that field never forgets. It retains the programs you thought you had outgrown. It reflects the beliefs your conscious mind has left behind, because it is absolutely honest. It does not judge. It only records and replays what you have once sent out. If you once believed I am not worthy, and later you learn to deny that belief with positive words, that is not enough. The energy field still remembers. If you once lived in prolonged fear, even if today you appear calm unless it is healed at the root, the energy field still carries the imprint of that fear. And this explains why certain emotions, scenarios, and circumstances keep repeating in your life, even though you have tried to change yourself. You do not need to blame yourself, but you must recognize something important. The energy field is the place that truthfully stores everything you have ever been, even when you have forgotten. And therefore, if you want true transformation, you cannot only change surface awareness. You must go deeper. You must renew the living energy surrounding you with new awareness, new emotions, and new states of being. Imagine you are a song. Every day you live, you send a melody into space. Even if you no longer remember the melody, no longer like that song unless you write a new one, the old one continues to play. And others, the people who interact with you, the opportunities that come to you, are responding to that melody, not to the image you present. Have you ever wondered why some people always attract light and ease, while others seem surrounded by heavy, repetitive scenarios? It is not fate. It is the energy field. Each person is like a broadcasting station, and the wave you are transmitting is the invitation you send out to the world. You cannot change what you still cannot see. The energy field, therefore, is the most honest mirror. It reflects back every signal you have transmitted. And it is from this reflection that you can begin the renewal process, not by fighting what you once were, but by embracing it, understanding it, then choosing again. Healing does not begin with erasing the past. It begins when you are still enough to hear the subtle signals still resonating in your living energy. When you start paying attention to the feeling others receive when they enter your space, when you ask, "What am I transmitting?" without realizing it, the answer will not come from the mind. It will come from intuition, from deep sensing, from quiet presence. Once you realize what frequency you are sending, you can begin to change that melody without noise, without grand declarations, simply by living differently bit by bit, choosing new emotions, choosing new thoughts, and repeating them long enough for the energy field to be rewritten, because energy does not lie. But it always accepts an update if you are steady and sincere. Remember, nothing you have ever experienced is lost, but nothing is beyond transformation either. Every wound, every false belief, every fear ever imprinted in you can be changed if you are sincere with yourself. And that begins when you stop running from the past, stop pretending to be fine, and dare to face, to listen, and to say, "I once carried this vibration, but now I choose differently." Every time you forgive yourself, you are cleansing the energy field. Every time you choose gratitude instead of resentment, you are changing the vibrational code. Every time you pause in silence to feel life without condition, without calculation, you are rewriting the song of your soul. The energy field will continue to reflect what you are, but you are no longer the old version if you truly change at the root. And the world will begin to respond to you differently, not because you have spoken differently, but because you are transmitting something new. You do not need to remember everything from the past to heal, but you do need to be aware of the present, aware of what frequency you are living in, aware of what you are inviting into your life. And from there, live as though every thought, every emotion, every reaction is a line of code rewriting your energy field. And the truth is, that is exactly what it island. You are the writer, you are the composer, you are the broadcaster, and you are also the one who will receive the echo. No need to hurry, no need to force. Only sincerity is required. For once the energy field changes, the whole universe will respond as though it had been waiting a very long time for you to return to your true frequency. Nothing spreads faster or stronger than the frequency of love. It does not need to be named, it does not need to be analyzed. The moment you carry it in your presence, the atmosphere around you begins to change. You step into a room without saying a word, and warmth radiates. You listen to someone without judgment, and their heart softens. You choose softness over hardness, trust over doubt, and situations begin to find harmony again. This is the miracle that does not come from words, but from the wave you are transmitting, the frequency of love. Love is not a fleeting emotion. It is a foundational state. It is the energy you bring into every small choice. It is the steady heartbeat of the soul when it no longer needs to fight to be seen, to be loved, to be accepted. When you live from love, you no longer use others to fill yourself. You carry your whole self everywhere like light that does not need recognition yet continues to shine. And what is even more profound is this: the frequency of love does not stop where you intend to send it. It spreads, it radiates. It touches even the areas you never thought of. When you live love in a relationship, you will notice your work becomes lighter. When you carry gratitude into your health, you will notice your finances begin to flow. When you stop judging yourself, the outer world also becomes less harsh with you. Not because circumstances changed, but because you did, and every other area responds to the new vibration. Because in truth, the different aspects of life are not separate. They are different expressions of the same wave you are carrying. If you live in the frequency of fear, whether in love or work, you will see lack appearing everywhere. If you live in control, you will see relationships always tense and the flow of money also stuck. But if you change, if you begin to live from love, there is no limit to how far that energy will reach. Love softens what is hard. It soothes what is chaotic. It mends what is broken. And the fascinating part is this: you do not need to try to love. You only need to clear the inner noise so that love can reveal itself, because it has always been your essence. No one needs to learn love, they only need to remember. Remember that they did not come here to defend, to grasp, to prove, but to radiate, to connect, to let the goodness within touch the world. Every time you forgive, you raise the frequency of one area. Every time you listen, you heal a layer of communication. Every time you give thanks instead of demanding, you adjust the frequency of abundance. And every time you choose love, not just in words but in presence, you are sending a signal across all domains of your life that from now on everything will be governed by the highest frequency. Look at the areas that are stagnant in your life: a job without excitement, a relationship full of distance, a body that often falls ill, a bank account that is unstable. Ask quietly, what vibration have I been living in this area? What signal am I transmitting? Fear, control, disappointment, or hope? The answer does not need to be perfect. But if you are honest, you will see a common denominator. It is the place where you have not truly lived with love. You do not need to do anything grand to begin transforming. Sometimes just a deep breath, a whispered thank you, a tender glance is enough to shift the entire field of energy. And from that point, changes begin to spread, silent but irreversible. The frequency of love does not need to be advertised. It attracts by itself, heals by itself, guides by itself. Life responds to you according to the state you are living. If you are love, every area of your life will gradually become loving. And what once seemed far away, abundance, recognition, peace, begins to feel ordinary. Not because you forced it, but because you matched its frequency. You no longer need to name what you want because you have become it. Love is the strongest foundation for all goodness to flourish. It is fertile soil for intuition to speak, for blessings to flow, for doors to open where you least expect. When you live with love as a way of being, not just as a random reaction, you begin to see life clearing the path for you in the smoothest way. No forcing, no straining, no proving, just presence and letting love do the rest. You do not need to control each area one by one. You only need to choose the root frequency from which you operate. And if that frequency is love, then every other area will automatically receive the message. Because the energy field does not distinguish between love, money, or health. It knows only one thing: what you transmit, you will receive in return. And when you choose love as your foundational state, you no longer need to heal part by part. You heal as a whole. You do not need to attract the good will find you. You no longer chase, you live as though you already have. For in love you are not lacking, not separate, not abandoned, not tested, only overflowing, waiting for you to live true to your essence once more. Let the frequency of love begin with the way you breathe, the way you look, the way you speak within yourself. Then let it spread into the areas you never thought of. And one day you will look back and see there is no area left to fix. For every part of your life has already joined in one frequency, the frequency of God. Human beings carry within themselves a subtle obsession, the need to control outcomes, to control processes, to control other people, to control themselves in every moment, as if without doing so everything would collapse, fail, or slip away. But what they do not realize is this: it is that very control which strangles the living flow of the divine. Control arises from fear, from an underlying belief that if they do not interfere, do not calculate, do not worry ahead of time, something bad will happen. Yet the truth is, the bad only comes when one steps out of trust. When you put yourself in the role of the one carrying everything, you step out of the position of a companion of the divine and lock yourself into the role of a frantic architect with no complete blueprint. And that is why many people pray without results. They say they believe, but immediately after the prayer comes a chain of controlling actions, worrying, pulling strings, interfering in the process, asking why hasn't anything changed yet. They think they are collaborating with the Almighty, but in reality they are crowding the very divine that is trying to work. Releasing control does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means recognizing the boundary between your part and the part of higher wisdom. Your part is to be clear about what you want, the vibration you hold, the actions you are inspired to take. The divine's part is to arrange, connect, open doors, guide the way. If you try to do everything, it means you do not trust. And if you do not trust, then every signal you transmit is mixed with doubt, causing your frequency to become distorted. Imagine planting a seed, then digging it up every day to check whether the roots have sprouted. That is what the controlling mind often does. It cannot be silent. It cannot wait. It cannot allow the sacred to have time and space to operate. And so instead of sprouting, the seed rots, not because it lacked energy, but because it was not left alone. Letting go of control is an art of living that requires inner strength. It is when you dare to step into the unknown with deep trust that something good is forming, even when there is no evidence. It is when you do not need to know how, when, or by what means, yet still live as though it is already happening. This is mature trust, not blind faith. It is letting go not out of exhaustion, but from understanding that there are things only the divine can complete. There are doors you cannot open by yourself. There are relationships you cannot heal on your own. There are dreams you cannot create alone. Not because you are weak, but because you were born to collaborate, not to carry everything. You have your part to hold the frequency, to live in the right emotion, to act when guided. But the rest, the orchestration of the universe, the invisible transformation, the placing of pieces into the right places, that is the work of the greater intelligence. And when you release control, you are not becoming lazy or careless. On the contrary, you become more refined. You listen more closely. You sense more accurately what needs to be done and what should be left alone. You no longer react in panic, but act from knowing. And it is precisely this release that makes you lighter, brighter, and begin to emit a frequency that the divine can respond to. Letting go of control also means letting go of rigid expectations. For sometimes you think you know what is best for you, but the divine sees further. And instead of forcing the universe to follow your will, you dare to say, if this is not the right thing, please replace it with something better. And then you watch that better thing appear, even if at first it does not look like what you wanted. Releasing control does not mean indifference. It is full presence without gripping. It is caring for each task you do with pure joy, not to force an outcome. It is knowing when to act and when to withdraw, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to step forward and when to stand still. You are the flow, not the dam. You are the channel, not the center of power. You are the one who entrusts, not the one who imposes. And when you live in that role, you will see something miraculous. Everything begins to move more smoothly, more beautifully, more lightly, without you having to strain as before. The divine does not need you to be a hero. It needs you to be a clear channel, clear enough for light to pass through, open enough for the flow to pour out, quiet enough for guidance to be heard, and humble enough to know when it is time to step back so the eternal wisdom can continue its work. The world does not change because you force it to. It changes because you stop resisting and begin to live as though you believe that there is a force infinitely more loving than you working with you. You are a part of that symphony, and your part is to keep the right rhythm, the right pitch, the right state of being, and then let the cosmic orchestra place everything else into its perfect place. There is one word that makes many people hesitate: surrender. In their minds, it is the symbol of failure, of giving up in despair, of abandoning hope, of abandoning themselves. But what they do not know is this: in the spiritual realm, surrender is not an ending but a beginning, not a failure, but the doorway to an entirely new way of living, where you stop struggling, stop clinging, stop resisting life, and begin to cooperate with infinite wisdom. Surrender is the soul's most courageous act. It requires you to release the ego that always wants to control, always believes it knows what is best, always fears being hurt. But the ego never sees the whole picture. The ego only knows what it has experienced. Infinite wisdom knows what lies beyond time. When you continue to rely on limited reasoning to steer the boat of your life, you will always crash into icebergs your old map does not show. But when you surrender, it means you say, "I am ready to let a greater wisdom lead the way." You do not give up your dreams when you surrender. You only give up the old way, give up the path of force, give up the belief that you must do everything alone. You still hold the desire, still hold the vision, but you allow the energy of the universe to shape it in a more complete way. It is like when you write down what you long for, then place it into the hands of the sacred, and say gently but firmly, "I entrust the rest to you." That is not the voice of weakness. That is the voice of one who understands where true strength comes from. Surrender does not mean doing nothing. It means doing your part with ease in your mind and letting infinite wisdom complete the rest. You do not sit still waiting for a miracle. You act but without forcing. You pray but without demanding. You live each day with the trust that what is right, what is best, will arrive at the right time in the right way through the right people. In the state of surrender, you no longer need to be right. You no longer need to explain to defend the ego. You choose purposeful silence because you know the voice of the divine will travel farther than any argument. You do not need to win, you need to harmonize. Harmonize with the flow, with the guidance, with what island, and from that point you truly become strong. Not the kind of strength that overpowers, but the kind of strength that fears nothing. Imagine you are gripping a rope that is dragging you upstream. The tighter you hold, the more your hands hurt. The harder you try to keep hold, the more exhausted you become. But the moment you let go, you do not sink, you float. You are not swept away, you are carried. Life is not against you. It is trying to carry you in the right direction. But you must let go. Not let go of hope, but let go of resistance. There are things you have begged for endlessly that have not come, not because the universe has not heard, but because you are still holding too tightly to your own way. When you surrender, something different happens. Instead of asking, "When will I get?" that you ask, "What is right for me right now?" And in that question, you open the door to things that have never been within your vision, but are exactly what you need most. Surrender is not passive. It is an inner action, the action of releasing the stubbornness of reason to make room for the wisdom of the soul. It is the decisiveness to let go of old thought patterns, limiting beliefs, assumptions that life must run according to your logic. When you dare to step beyond that comfort zone, you begin to hear the whisper of infinite wisdom, which has always been there, just waiting for you to be still enough to listen. No one can teach you how to surrender. It is a personal choice born from a deep awareness that you are tired of carrying it all alone, and you are ready to collaborate with a greater force. It is the place where all advice stops and trust begins, the place where you close your eyes not to avoid, but to see more clearly with the inner eye. And when you truly surrender, you no longer ask, "What will I get?" but instead ask, "Where am I being led?" You no longer live in the energy of taking, but in the vibration of opening. And it is precisely that opening that allows miracles to begin. Not loud, not dramatic, but quiet, steady, irreversible. It is the miracle that comes from within, from a soul that has learned how to trust unconditionally. Remember this: you are not the one struggling to climb the peak alone. You are the one being carried by a river that knows the destination. Do not resist. Do not fear if you cannot see the shore. Do not panic if the water is deep. This river will not drown you. It is teaching you to float by letting go of what is no longer needed. And each time you dare to surrender, a part of wisdom awakens in you. A part of the divine within you shines forth, and a new door begins to open. Not because you knocked, but because the universe chose to invite you in. It is not enough to believe in God. It is not enough to speak of Him, to pray to Him, or to read thousands of pages of sacred texts. What is being called for in this moment is not distant devotion, but embodiment, to become the living embodiment of God's frequency in everyday life. Not to appear more religious than others, but to allow love to be seen, touched, and felt tangibly through your very presence. God is not an abstract concept found only in rituals, but a vibrational state that can be present in every glance, every word, every daily interaction. And when you live in that frequency, you no longer need to prove anything. You only need to be present, for the energy you radiate speaks louder than any words. You are not called to become a preacher. You are called to become a liver of truth. The difference between the two is vast. A preacher may know the right words, the right ideas, the right theories, but one who lives the truth is someone whose mere presence in a room makes everything lighter, brighter, calmer, because they are living in God's frequency, and they cannot help but radiate it. And that frequency does not come from memorizing doctrines. It comes from choosing love in every circumstance, choosing forgiveness even when there is reason to resent, choosing silence instead of attack, choosing to step forward when others retreat, choosing to trust even without evidence, choosing to act as though God is alive in every one of your cells because that is the truth. You cannot radiate what you do not live. You cannot generate the vibration of the divine if your inner world is still filled with judgment, fear, envy, or doubt. Frequency does not lie. And the world does not respond to what you say but to what you are. When you become the living embodiment of God, you do not need to shout. You are a silent invitation. A single look from you may be enough to stop someone in their tracks. A single word from you may be enough to awaken something long asleep in another's heart. Not because you are special, but because you have become transparent, allowing the sacred light to shine through unwarped. Becoming the living embodiment of God does not mean you must be perfect. On the contrary, it is the depth of honesty that allows you to look into your own shadows without fear, to correct your mistakes without excuses, to relearn old lessons without shame. Because you understand wholeness is not about spotless perfection, but about the ability to hold the vibration of love even amid imperfection. Those who live in God's frequency do not pretend. They do not wear masks of morality. They do not need to prove their goodness. They only need to be real, so real that their energy naturally aligns with the sacred plane of existence. And when that happens, everything they touch is transformed. No effort, no tactics. For light does not need advertising, it only needs to be switched on. Becoming the living embodiment of God is choosing to live from a state of union. It is no longer feeling as though you are seeking God, but living as though God is alive within you. It is no longer separation between the one who prays and the one being prayed to, but complete integration. It is when every action, even pouring a glass of water, boarding a bus, or glancing at a stranger, carries the energy of one who lives in sacred awareness. And this is not far away. It begins with small choices, with choosing silence when anger rises, with pausing to listen instead of rushing to argue, with praying not only in ceremonies but in the very way you open your eyes each morning, in how you respond to adversity, in the gaze you give someone who is hurting, in the consistency between what you believe and what you demonstrate each day. No one is asking you to become a saint, but there is a sacred invitation that never ceases to align with the frequency of the source, not by abandoning ordinary life, but by bringing the sacred into that very life. No church, no stage, no title required. Only you present here, living fully in the awareness of who you are and what you are radiating. Remember, you did not come into this world merely to learn about light. You came to become the light. And when you live this way, not preaching, not persuading, your very presence becomes the greatest sermon. A sermon not of words, but written in living frequency and aura, in the small repeated actions of each day, until it becomes as natural as breathing. That is when you no longer chase after God, but live as though you have already been united. That is when you no longer ask, "Where is God?" but allow others to look at you and see part of the answer. That is when you no longer see yourself as the one praying, but as the prayer itself, alive, breathing, walking in the world as a testament that God's frequency is not distant but alive, beating and shining through you. A miracle is not a rare event, not something reserved only for saints, nor the product of luck. A miracle is part of the order of the universe, activated when the human heart touches the right frequency of life. They do not occur to break the laws, but to affirm that there is a deeper, wiser layer at work behind everything the eye cannot see. It is only when the human mind is programmed by fear, limitation, and doubt that miracles become rare. But in the original nature of consciousness, the miraculous is the default state. A child never doubts that it is worthy of love. A mind not yet trained by rigid logic still easily believes in the good, still readily trusts that the extraordinary can happen at any moment, and it is precisely that trust that opens the gateway. Not a mystical gate, but an inner opening where the soul's vibration begins to align with the universe's current of energy. At that point, you do not cause a miracle. You simply stop blocking it, for it has always been there. It has only been waiting for you to align. Miracles do not need to be convinced to happen. They only require an inner atmosphere clean enough, open enough, soft enough for the light to pass through. And that light does not come from somewhere far away. It comes from within you, from the purest part of you that has always remembered you are an extension of the divine source. Every time you hold peace in the storm, that is a miracle. Every time you choose forgiveness when you have every reason to resent, that is a miracle. When you dare to trust once more after countless heartbreaks, that is a miracle happening in its purest form, the transformation from within. Do not wait for spectacular phenomena like water turning into wine, or someone walking on the sea to recognize the intervention of the divine. The greatest miracle is when your soul is healed, when an old thought is released, when a closed heart is opened, when a shattered life rises again, not by the strength of reason but by the vitality of spirit. Miracles happen when separation dissolves, when you stop thinking you are cut off from the source, when you remember that you never need to prove yourself worthy of love, you only need to show up with a truthful heart. That return, that union, is what restores the natural flow of the miraculous. And the truth is, you do not need to know how to create a miracle. The question how always comes from the doubting mind. The soul does not need to know the method, it only needs to hold the vibration. The rest, infinite wisdom will arrange. You do not control the miracle. You create the conditions for it to arise. You do not need to drag heaven down to earth. You only need to remove the veils, and heaven, which has always been present, will be revealed. You do not need to be perfect to witness the miraculous. But you need to be honest, to release the doubts that have been rooted too long, to stop defining life only through what has already happened. A miracle does not care how many times you have failed. It only needs a single moment when you dare to open your heart, dare to trust, not because you see with your eyes, but because you know with your heart. And if you are living through a dry season where every effort has yet to yield results, where every door seems to be closing, know this: it is not the end. It is the stillness before the frequency within is strong enough to leap, like the soil needing time to absorb the seed, like the sky falling silent before lightning strikes. Hold your vibration. Do not mistake silence for the absence of the divine. Miracles are never in a hurry. They wait until you are ready. And when you live in that awareness, you no longer seek miracles as something distant. You become the miracle. Wherever you go, the space grows warmer. Whoever you touch, they feel lighter. Not because you have supernatural powers, but because you have become so transparent that God can work through you without obstruction. That is the true nature of a miracle, not something to possess, but something to allow, not something to chase, but a current to flow into. And the most beautiful truth is this: miracles never run out. They are born from an infinite source, a place of nothing but wholeness and love. If you feel life has run dry, it is not because the source is empty, but because you have closed the valve. Open, even just a little, even for a single silent moment, even with a single full breath, and let the frequency of the miraculous begin to flow through you again. Not loud, not showy, but steady and unstoppable. Miracles are not rare. They have never been rare. What is rare are hearts simple enough to believe again, and courageous enough to live as though the miraculous is natural. If you are hearing this, perhaps you are one of those few, and perhaps if you simply live as though it is true, the world around you will be reminded that miracles have always been real. They are still happening, and they are still flowing right now, through you. It is not difficult to hold a high frequency when everything flows smoothly. When work is thriving, relationships are harmonious, and health is stable. You can easily smile, easily give thanks, easily believe in the light. But the soul is not trained in the sunshine. It is forged in the dark night. In those moments when nothing outside affirms what you believe inside, in those long silent hours where you pray, and it seems only emptiness answers, where you hold the frequency not because you see, but because you choose. The dark night of the soul is the time when every mask falls away. No more formulas, no more roles, no more borrowed beliefs. Only you remain faced with a choice. Either lower your frequency to match your circumstances, or hold steady to the vibration of truth, even when everything screams that you are dreaming. And it is precisely in the space between those two choices that true power is born. When you hold the frequency of love while being betrayed, that is not weakness, it is the purest strength. When you choose gratitude in the midst of loss, that is not denial of reality, it is acknowledgement that there is a deeper layer of reality at work. When you dare to keep walking in the night without evidence, without comfort, relying only on a small inner flame, that flame will become a torch for you, and then for others. The universe does not test your knowledge. It tests the endurance of the vibration you hold. And if you are passing through the dark night of the soul, understand you are not being punished, you are being prepared. Every high frequency requires a solid pillar. Every strong light must be protected by an unshakable inner foundation. It is not by accident that you have been called to this path. And it is not by accident that there are seasons that feel empty, bleak, without exit. That is the backward step before the quantum leap. That is the time when the old system of beliefs dissolves so that a new order can be established. And the only thing you are called to do is to hold the vibration, not to strain, not to pretend to be strong, but to refuse to compromise with fear, to refuse to retreat into old patterns, to refuse to conform to lower energies just because they are common, to refuse to abandon the light just because the dark shouts louder. At times you will feel as though no one understands, as though you are standing alone on an invisible road with no signs, no shortcuts, no applause. But right there, a miracle is forming. You begin to know that God is not merely something to believe in, but something to live with. No longer a borrowed faith from someone else, but a vital, intimate, sacred, and irrevocable experience. The frequency you hold in the night will be what shapes your reality when the light returns. For the light always returns. But who you will be when it comes, that depends on how you lived in the dark. If you have ever passed through such hours, you understand there are truths that cannot be taught in words. They can only be transmitted through the vibration of one who has walked the night without losing the light within. And if you are in that dark night, now know this, you are not alone. No one holds the light forever without sometimes faltering. But each time you choose to return to the frequency of love, you are building a stronger rhythm, a sturdier structure of light, an inner lighthouse that one day will guide others. Holding the frequency does not mean you must always be cheerful. It means you are honest with your emotions, but you do not let them pull you away from the source. That you can cry yet still know you are being held in invisible arms. That you can feel uncertain yet still refuse to betray your intuition. That you can feel small yet still act as if the entire universe supports you, because it does. And then there will come a moment, perhaps without warning, when you realize the night no longer frightens you. Not because it has disappeared, but because you have found the light within yourself. At that point, you no longer hold the frequency as an effort. It becomes a state of being. You no longer hold, you are. Like the sun does not need to shout to shine, it only needs to be. And because it is light, darkness cannot remain. So it is with you. When you have aligned with the frequency of the source, every circumstance